Dirk, and you know this, I think organizations everywhere, they're awash in data, they're awash in information, they're awash in analytics. And by the way, those three things are not exactly the same. Did you know that?
Information, data, and analytics. Not
Actually, I think it really goes in the order of data, information, and analytics.
Okay, sure.
It's kind of
one is just
a progression,
stuff.
raw to process,
gotcha.
is how that works.
Okay.
Now, gathering up these things is important, but what's really important is what you do with them. That's what really counts. And a recent article that examines this very issue is titled Everyday Analytics by Business Leader and Performance Excellence Consultant Ryan Mandel. The piece first appeared last month on the Smart Brief blog, and we republished it in Tuesday's issue of the Quality Digest newsletter. Mandel's key takeaway here is that if analytics are to be truly useful across the entirety of an organization, then they need to be made simple for the rank and file. Now, not every organization, as Mandel points out, employ data scientists and analytics experts. So if you don't have those kind of people with that expertise in your organization, how do you share and have people understand the analytics that you're coming up with, the data that you confirm that you're turning into information that you're turning into analytics? How do you know what that means?
We had this discussion with Tim Lozier of ETQ the other day.
we have it internally all the time too. It's like, do we know what this means? And so that's a really important piece of this. So the question, of course, is then how can companies more easily share the most pertinent information and take fullest advantage of the opportunities to learn from the analytics that comes from that? And Mandel suggests a couple of actions that I think are pretty valuable. First, he says you should really narrow down what you need to know. There's lots of noise in the signals that emerge from even a small organization when it comes to data points. We know that. We're not in a very big organization here at Quality Digest, but we have a lot of information, a lot of data, a lot of analytics, and we need to pare through it and look at what the really important pieces of that is and find the signal and the noise. You want to talk to your frontline people about what they're doing and what they need to know better to do their jobs in the best possible way. That's really important. Don't forget about what the people that are doing the work need to know. Sometimes you gather all this information, these analytics, and you say, this is great, we know all this stuff, and the frontline person says, that's great, it doesn't really apply to what I'm doing. So maybe you need to gather information for that person. That's really a key thing. Another suggestion that Mandel offers is to not forget about the so-called domain expertise, which is superior knowledge or insight about something of importance to the organization. By combining real-time informational analysis with this type of experiential insight, organizations can get the best of both worlds because neither data nor experience in and of itself is as effective. Think about what he's saying there. There was for many years this idea that these domain expertise was the be-all and end-all. You had somebody who had experience, 20 years worth, and that's the go-to guy or go-to gal. Right. They know what needs to be done. Well, that's kind of moved away from that, more into this era now of, in God we trust, all others bring data. So now we're in that era more, and the domain expertise has kind of maybe gone by the wayside. But it's valuable to merge those two things together. Look at the data, try to see what it's saying, and then run it by the people that have 20 years of experience and say, hey, does this make sense? Do a sanity check on it. Because you may find, well, yeah, that is going on, and that's true, but really the key thing is this piece of it here, from my experience, that I think is really valuable.
Right.
That's important to bring those people into because they have the expertise. And always remember, I think analytics are not a goal into themselves. This is really important. If you don't know where you're going, you don't know if you've arrived. So you have to look at analytics as a piece of a broader thing. It's almost counterintuitive that you're going to start with a question before you start, or you're going to start with an answer you want before you start asking the questions, but you have to kind of know where you want to go, right? If you don't know where you want to go, all the analytics in the world aren't necessarily going to tell you what you need to know about getting there. So you start with a destination in mind, and then you begin to go backward.
And I think one thing that's woven in there, although I don't know if Mandel pointed out explicitly, is very often companies or organizations will collect data, and they'll have their employees collect the data for them, field data or that sort of stuff, and they don't tell them why they're collecting it. And so the employees, it's and I know because I know people who work in a certain field who are required to fill out all this information, and they don't know why they're collecting it. So for them, it's like busy. It's like, why am I doing this? It's like, it takes me forever to fill out this form, you know, and I've got to do all this stuff. And so if you don't know if the employee doesn't know what they're collecting the data for, they're not going to be very inclined, number one, to collect it or to collect it very well.
Carefully.
You really want them to understand how this data they're collecting, how it's inputting into the overall process and why it's important, what will be done with that data, how it might help their lives better if they collect. But if you're keeping them in the dark or just collect this data, they have, well, what's the incentive for doing it? Other than it's just busy work, right?
Exactly right, exactly right. And that's a key point here too.
Yeah, all right.
Thanks, Doug.